So before we move on with this corrective deformation process, I'm going to do some cleanup that I should have been addressing as we were moving along, but I postponed it for later, and I think this is the best time to deal with it before I start adding additional nodes. Now, you might have noticed that the character has changed a bit. There is a little bit of a shading difference, and I've done this in preparation for the corrective deformation work. The character is going to be naked most of the time, so I at least want to have something that covers the character up so that when the clothes are off and we start doing this work, I don't have something on the screen that might not be safe for work viewing from wherever you're watching. All right, the first thing I want to do is get rid of the proxy meshes that I no longer needed. The ones that I created with advanced skeleton, that didn't turn out as well. So let me hide this body and show you what I'm talking about, this one. Some of these nodes are still in the scene. So I'm going to navigate to them. They are in my geometry folder under the cut up. And it's pretty much all these nodes without a group, because you remember we created these groups for the new proxy meshes, and they're all housed inside these groups. So I'm going to grab, this is what we don't need, and I'm going to delete them. And now that we no longer need this layer, I can also delete the layer. So we have the body, and then we have our real cut up here. So let me just make sure everything is functioning correctly. The next thing I want to clean up is related to set-driven keys. If you remember, when I was doing the control system for this tail, specifically this tail space switching, I used the set-driven key system to connect this space switching to two orient constraints. And whenever you do that, there is a curve produced in the scene. And I learned this the hard way, that if you do not lock those curves, sometimes when you're animating, you're going to end up selecting those curves in the graph editor and setting keys on them. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to drill down to this tail. I'm going to the motion system for the tail. Go to the main system. And if I select this orient constraint here, you'll see these two orient constraints that I created and connected to set-driven keys. That's why you see this light blue highlight here. If I go into the graph editor, so if I select this and go Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor, it has created these curves. And it is very easy to move these around when you're animating because they're not locked down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these keys that have been created for this space switching. And I'm going to, in the graph editor, hit the H key, and this should lock all of them. So you should see this black highlight here. That means the curve is locked and you cannot move it. You cannot activate your manipulator tools to move it around. And you should also see this icon here that lets you know it's hidden. If you want to unhide them, I think you hit the J key. So if I hit the J key, it brings them back. So if I ever need to come in here and adjust them, I can come and do that. But for now, I'm going to go back and hit the H key to keep them locked. And as we proceed to create new set-driven keys for the corrective deformation I'm going to be creating, I'll be doing the same process. All right, last thing I want to do before we get started is related to, well, it's more of a test. And it's me wanting to make sure that this setup with my tail that has been imported with the namespace and this character are going to work well when they are referenced into a scene, right? Because what I'm going to expect to see is two reference nodes when I reference this character into a scene, whatever the file name is when this character is complete, and this additional tail. So there will be two semicolons. I just want to make sure that the advanced skeleton picker knows how to deal with it. So I'm going to go to a new scene here, and I'm going to just come over here and create a reference. And I'm going to leave this use namespaces checked. I'm going to go reference and bring in my file. All right, so this is the rig. And as expected, this is the file name that I currently have. It's KOS68. If I select any of these tail nodes and drill down, I should see KOS68 and the K-tail from the tail import. So if I open the body picker, if I was to say rotate her hand upward like this, and I want to match IK to FK, I can do so by going to nim, switch FK to IK. Okay, and that works. And I'm going to do the same for the tail. So I'm going to select the tail, rotate it, and with one of these tail controls selected and the tail selected over here in this namespace box, I'm also going to go anim, switch IK to FK, and that works too. So I'm happy that this is not going to be a problem, because I thought that this 2-tier namespace thing was going to be a problem. So now it's time to create this master intermediary blend shape that I know we are for sure going to use. Because if you remember, when I showed you this table, 2 of these methods that could potentially be a solution for any of these, which is the sculpt deformer and the cluster solutions, require an intermediary blend shape. And if I find that I use all other methods for my deformation that don't require the intermediary blend shape approach, it's just an easy delete. So I'm going to select this body of the character, and I'm going to go Control D to duplicate it and Shift P to get it out of the group. And because it's skinned, it's locked. So I have to unlock at least the parameter that I want to move it in. So I'm going to right click and go unlock selected for translate X, because I really just want to move it in the X axis to the side. I'll pick a nice whole number, so I have something. All right, now I'm going to pick an appropriate name for this. I like to think of it as the master blend shape. So I'm just going to give it a handful of tags or words that just help me to identify it and help anybody else who wants to edit it later to remember what it is. So I'm going to call it master BSHP and intermediary. Right, you can call it whatever you want. This is what I decided I want it to be. And just to do some organization early, I'm going to group it into a blend shapes group and put it under my characters group. It's not supposed to transform, so I think it's fine if it sits outside this group with nothing capable of initiating its movement, because you're never going to move this group. So now it's time to attach it to the main character. So I'm going to select the target, select my source, go into the rigging menu, go deform, blend shape, and here, just so I can identify it again from the other blend shapes I'm going to be creating, because even though this is an intermediary blend shape, it is going to show up in the shape editor. I just want to always be able to distinguish it from all the in-context blend shapes I'm going to create. So I'll do that by just keeping everything uppercase for it. So I'll go BSHP. I'll just call it int, master BSHP int. And under advanced, just make sure automatic is selected. This will make Maya put it in the right place. It will look at the skin cluster and say, okay, this is a blend shape. It definitely has to go underneath our skin cluster. The default settings are fine. So we're going to go create. And just to avoid some confusion, I realize that these names are not going to do as much to help identify what these nodes are. This is geometry, so I am going to give it a prefix of geo. Let's say it's geometry. And I'll keep the naming pretty much the same as the actual node. So if I go into the shape editor, so if I open the shape editor, looks like there's already a bunch of nodes in here that Advanced Skeleton created that it's using to make the face work correctly. So I have to drill down to find mine, and that's mine. So this really is a target node. Let me reevaluate this naming convention so I can do something that makes sense. I'm actually going to call this BSHP intermediary. And this is a target. So I'm going to call it TRGT intermediary. All right, so this makes a little bit more sense. All right, so yeah, you could change the name after you've created it. And I think this is a good enough identifier. But yeah, in here, I definitely want something that makes a little bit more sense. And just for organization purposes, just so I don't get confused, I'm going to group all the ones that Advanced Skeleton has here, put them in a group and call them Advanced Skeleton Blend Shapes. Or just more specific, Advanced Skeleton Created Blend Shapes. Okay, so this is my intermediary. This is what Advanced Skeleton had. And we're good. This is my target. Now let me make sure that this node we just created is on. So I'm going to turn on the target. You can turn it on from here or here. Whichever one of these works. You can turn it on here and there. And I'm going to do a little test to make sure that the live connection is in fact working. So I will select a vertex and move it. And it does move on the source mesh. So we're good. All right, so now I'm going to show you how that automatic setting has placed our blend shape in the correct spot. So if I select our source mesh, go into the inputs. Oh, it looks like it didn't do the job because this is where our blend shape is, right? So it looks like it might have gotten confused because of all these. Anyway, so this needs to be moved down. So you middle mouse drag it all the way down. Make sure it's beneath all the skin clusters, right? I was pretty sure that automatic did the job of putting it in place, but I suppose you always want to come here and check to make sure that it has in fact been placed at the correct place. So you want it underneath all our skin clusters. These are our multiple skin clusters that Advanced Skeleton gave us, our Delta Mush Deformer, and you want it between the skin cluster and the tweak node. And it does look like I left two of these old proxies over here. They were hiding between these groups. So I'm going to select them and delete them.